Shalom Aleichem, Mishpachim. All right, I am coming to you with the final reading in the Parsha of Vayigash, in the book of Bereshis, Genesis. All right, this is the final portion, 7th Aliyah. Starting with verse 11. Chapter 47, verse 11 to the end of Vayigash. Onkelos' translation is on top, and there's further commentary on the bottom. Joseph settled his father and his brothers, and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, of the best part of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. Verse 11, gave them a possession. While Joseph's family intended to remain in Egypt only until the famine ceased, Pharaoh generously ordered Joseph to settle them in the land as residents with full citizen rights. Verse 12, chapter 47. Joseph sustained his father, brothers, and his father's entire household with bread, according to the needs of the little ones. Verse 13. There was no bread in all the land, because the famine was very severe, and the people of the land of Egypt and the people of the land of Canaan became weary because of the famine. Verse 12. According to the needs of the little ones. While Onkelos does not explain the obscure according to the little ones, Rashi adds, according to the needs of every household member. Sforno is more restrictive. Even though Joseph had the ability to supply his family with large amounts of food, he handed them only what they absolutely needed. For, as indicated in the Babylonian Talmud and Ta'anit 11a, it is inconsiderate and improper to eat a lot when others are starving. Verse 13, no bread. The narrative now returned to the beginning of the period of famine, before Jacob and his family arrived. People, the Targum and the Sadi Agon insert the implied noun, people, twice, as in chapter 45, verse 2 and elsewhere. Egypt, Canaan. Why are only Egypt and Canaan mentioned? What was happening in the rest of the world? Rashbam proposes that either the other lands were not involved in purchasing food because they were too distant to travel to Egypt, or the famine did not extend beyond Egypt and Canaan. Became weary. Onkelos, Rashi, and the Sadi Agon translate scriptures tela as weary, but even Ezra and Radak define it as craziness, precipitated by hunger. Verse 14. Joseph gathered in all the money that was to be found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the grain that they were buying. Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. Verse 15. When the money was gone from the land of Egypt and from the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph, saying, give us bread, for why should we die in your presence? For the money is gone. Verse 14. Gathered in all the money. During the initial 2 years of famine, the people ate what they were able to collect and stored during the preceding 7 years of plenty. But during the following 3 years, they spent all their money to obtain the food that they lacked. Grain, buying. The Hebrew has grain as shever and buying as shovrim. Brought the money into Pharaoh's house. This passage emphasizes Joseph's honesty. He took no money as compensation for his work. Hid no money in Egypt, and sent none to Canaan. Verse 15. Egyptians. The Bible has the biblical understanding has this as Egypt. See also verse 20 and commentaries on chapter 41, verse 55, and chapter 45, verse 2. Gone. The Hebrew, aphes, here and in verse 16, could mean nothing or gone. The Targumist and Rashi select the latter interpretation, repeating the word from the beginning of the verse. Verse 17. Torah. They brought this is Onkelos' translation. They brought their herds to Joseph. Joseph gave them bread for their horses, for flocks of sheep, for herds of cattle, and for asses. He fed them with bread in exchange for all their herds during that year. Verse 18. That year ended. They came to him during the second year and said to him, We will not conceal from my lord, but the money is gone, and the herds of animals are with my lord. There is nothing left to give before my lord except for our bodies and our land. All right, verse 17. Fed them. Onkelos takes scriptures Vayigash literally, he led them, as a metaphor for fed them. Sforno, a doctor, explains that he led them, suggests that Joseph provided the people with food sparingly, for it would be unhealthy in years of famine to overeat, as the Babylonian Talmud, Ta'anit, teaches. Whosoever does not overeat during periods of famine is spared an unusual death. Verse 19. Verse 18. That year ended. They came to him during the second year and said to him, We will not conceal from my lord, but the money is gone, and the herds of animals are with my lord. There is nothing left to give before my lord, except for our bodies and our land. Verse 19. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants to Pharaoh, and give us seed, so we may live and not die, and the land will not lie fallow. Verse 20. Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, because every Egyptian sold his field, for the famine was very severe for them. Thus the land became Pharaoh's. Verse 19. Why should we die? Our Targumist frequently rephrases biblical questions as positive statements, but does not do so here, probably because he felt that his readers would not mistake it for the positive statement, we would die. However, the Saadia Gaon does alter the phrase to read, let us not die. We in our land. Can land die? Ibn Ezra, Radak, and Chazkani explain that this is a figure of speech, signifying that the land will lie fallow without vegetation. Fallow, the biblical Hebrew tesham, become totally desolate. Biblical Hebrew abounds in hyperbole, generally to attract attention, highlight an issue, phrase poetically, or simply to employ a commonly known figure of speech, such as the description of the Tower of Babel, reaching all the way to heaven, in chapter 11, verse 4 in Bereshit. Onkelos softens the hyperbole in our verse by describing the land as uncultivated. Verse 20, Egyptian as Egypt. Verse 21, Onkelos' translation. He removed the people from city to city, from one end of Egypt's border to the other. All right, verse 21. Removed the people from city to city. The Aramaic explains the Hebrew's brief to cities. Why did Joseph move the people? The transfer impressed upon them that they no longer had ownership rights to the land. The king of Assyria in 2 Kings, chapter 18, verse 32. Also transferred populations to prevent peoples from forming attachments and laying claim to the land. It may also have been done to make all Egyptians feel, in a sense, exiled from their land, so that they would not regard Joseph's brothers as the only exiles. Verse 22, Onkelos' translation. Only the lands of the priests he did not buy, for the priests had a portion allotment from Pharaoh, and they ate the portion that Pharaoh gave them. Therefore they did not need to sell their land. Verse 23. Joseph said to the people, Behold, I have acquired you and your land for Pharaoh today. Here is seed for you. Now sow the land. Verse 22. Priests. Whenever Scripture titles a non-Israelite idol worshiper a Kohen, priest, our Targumist differentiates him from the Israelite Kohen by naming him a Qumrah, as he does twice in this verse. However, when he felt that the word Kohen was used for a non-Israelite as a rank of nobility, as in chapter 41, verse 45, and in Exodus chapter 2, verse 16, and chapter 3, verse 1, he uses Rabbah, meaning prince, or noble, or chief. The Saadia Gaon addresses this sensitivity in his Arabic translation by softening the reference to their priests. Unlike the Targumist and the Saadia Gaon, but with the same concern, Chazkani interprets Kohen here as officials. portion. The noun chok could mean law or portion. Our Targumist selected the latter here because it is appropriate in the context. Rashi interprets that the priests received a prescribed portion of bread per day. In verse 26, Onkelos has the word law for the Hebrew chok. Verse 23, here, Scripture has the unusual word hein, which the Aramaic simply repeats without definition. Some manuscripts have ha. Rashi defines it as behold. Verse 24, Onkelos' translation. And it will be that when you bring in the produce, you must give a fifth to Pharaoh, and 4 parts will be yours as seed for the field and as your food, and for the people of your households, and to feed your little ones. Verse 25. They said, you helped us endure. Let us find favor in the eyes of my Lord, and let us be serfs to Pharaoh. Verse 24. When you bring in. Onkelos inserts when you bring in to clarify Scripture's brief, and it shall be regarding the produce. A fifth to Pharaoh, and 4 parts will be yours. 1/5 went to Pharaoh. Another 5th was used for seed, 1 for food, 1 for home maintenance, including the household slaves, and the last 5th was for the children. People of your households. The word people is inserted for clarity by the Targumist. Verse 25, endure. The Hebrew has this as kept us alive. My Lord. As we note frequently, biblical Hebrew is often unconcerned about the usage of the singular and plural tenses. Here we have the plural let us, followed by the singular my Lord. Onkelos changes some of these phrases, but does not do so in this case. Verse 26, Onkelos' translation. Joseph made it a law applicable to this day about the land of Egypt, that they should give a fifth to Pharaoh. Only the land of the priests exclusively did not become Pharaoh's. Verse 27. Israel dwelt in the land of Canaan, in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen. They took possession of it, became numerous, and increased exceedingly. Verse 26. Law. The Hebrew has this as chok. That they should give. The Targum adds these words to explain Scripture's brief idiom, to Pharaoh, to a fifth, and drops the phrase linguistically unnecessary second preposition, to. Priests, Hebrew has this as kohanim. Verse 27, Israel dwelt. This verb should have introduced the next weekly Torah portion, vayachi, because it logically connects with verse 28. Rashbam on verse 29 explains that the Jewish communities were reluctant to end the Torah portion, Vayigash, with the story of Pharaoh's acquisitions. So verse 27 was appended to Vayigash. Numerous and increased. The Bible has its typical picturesque metaphor. They were fruitful. All right. And that is the finishing of Vayigash. Next will be Vayechi. All right. It's time to read some from the wisdom of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. This is the Daily Wisdom Sefer, Wisdom of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, on the Parshiot. All right, what I just read was chapter 47, verse 11 through 27. This is Parshas Vayigash, the final reading, in the book of Genesis, Bereshis. As a result of Jacob's blessing, the predicted 7 years of famine ended after only 2 years. Seeing that the famine had ended, the Egyptians asked Joseph for seed in order to plant crops for the following year. Sowing spiritual seeds. The title of this daily wisdom on the Parshiot is called Sowing Spiritual Seeds. Joseph said to the Egyptians, "Here is seed. Here is seed grain for you, so you can sow the ground." Joseph gave the people seed, but they knew that it was not enough to simply eat the seed. They needed to plant it, tend it, and harvest it. The Josephs of our generation are our spiritual guides and teachers. When we receive spiritual sustenance from them, that is, inspiration and knowledge, we must not be satisfied simply to receive it and use it for our own spiritual survival. Rather, we must plant these spiritual seeds and actualize their potential, both for our spiritual growth and in order to inspire others. And that is the daily wisdom on the Parshiot. And that is the final reading of Vayigash. Have a wonderful day.